Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer at Geek Vibes Nation, and I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I'm Dillon Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director for geekvibesnation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a new Video Addict new release roundup. If you're new here, first of all, welcome. What we do here is we go back and forth talking about the latest home video releases, some mainstream stuff, some like indie offerings, and a little bit of everything in between. So with that, I'm going to kick it off to you to start this party.
Oh, thank you very much. You know, I'm starting with an exciting boutique 4K upgrade, and that is from our friends at Screen Factory, and I am talking about Bubba Ho-Tep, the Bruce Campbell cult classic from the early 2000s. I remember this one was like kind of a minor phenomenon amongst my friend group, and whenever this came out, we were so excited about this, seeing Bruce Campbell play someone who thinks they are the real living Elvis. Elvis never died, but it was fun to revisit this one. There is no double-sided artwork here. It is just the standard, which I actually have the Blu-ray of this, and it has some different cover art. So I would have liked to have seen that on the reverse, but it is what it is, one-sided. But you do get this nice slipcover if you get it early. So revisiting this movie, like I said, this is about Bruce Campbell plays who is a person who believes they are the real Elvis. They are living in a nursing home right now. He was the real Elvis. The Elvis that everyone thinks to died was an Elvis impersonator, and he kind of like explains the backstory of like how this came about, how he crossed paths with this Elvis impersonator and decided to switch lives with him, and how that ended up. There's also a person at the nursing home played by O.C. Davis. He's an elderly black man who believes that he is JFK, and that he is that the government colorized him, and just like all these different government conspiracies, which is even more hard to believe. But Elvis, he kind of goes along with it. But what this actually is a mummy tale. This is there's a mummy plaguing the nursing home and sucking out souls out of buttholes, and it's a
As you
good
do.
time. Yeah, yeah, as you do. Like if you're gonna be there, you might as well suck a soul down there. So why not? But so this is a good old fashioned mummy tale, and uh, I do have quite a bit of fun with this. I do find myself thinking that it never quite gets to the level that I build it up to in my mind, like with the premise. It's a really funny movie, but like it kind of is a little bit slower and more contemplative than I kind of remembered it being. And it's a really good movie, and I really enjoy it. But it's kind of just it's not like as consistently like blowing me away as I wanted to, but it's still overall a pretty solid movie, and it's a good effort. This comes from Don Corsarelli, Corsa Corscarelli, sorry, but and he has a commentary track on here. There's three commentary tracks on here actually, one from him, one from the writer, and one from Bruce Campbell in character as the king. So you get
Nice.
three commentary tracks, which is cool. And this new 4K comes from a new 4K scan of the original camera negative. It is in Dolby Vision. It looks really good. None of the grain has been scrubbed away or anything. It has nice, solid film grain. The contrast levels are really good. The black levels are solid. The highlights are not clipped. You don't get any like clumping in the grain field or anything like that. It's just a really well done transfer. I didn't notice any compression artifacts. They leave pretty much all of the wealth of extras for the Blu-ray, except I believe the commentary tracks are on the 4K. Yes, they are. And there are a ton of special features on the Blu-ray. So if you had the previous Blu-ray, that is ported over. And there are three new unreleased featurettes that were not on the previous release that are new to this. One of them is like a premiere at the Egyptian Theater. I believe another one is at like a Q&A at a festival. And then there's another featurette that I slips my mind at the moment. There's also several interviews, like including one with Bruce Campbell, one with the director, featurettes on the music, the special effects. There's like music videos. There's a lot of stuff on here. And this does not have a Dolby Atmos track. It ports over the previous DTS 5.1 and the 2.0 soundtrack, it serves the movie perfectly well. I don't think it necessarily needed the expanded like audio field. If they would have done that, would have been great. But as it is, it sounds great. So overall, this is a really solid presentation if you are a fan of this film. I did some like kind of A/B testing with my old Blu-ray, and this is much better. So fans of this movie, they have done a really nice job with this, and they do have some. I want to mention for those who are slipcover enthusiasts, there are some different package levels on ScreamFactory.com where you can get like an alternate slipcover, and there's also one with like a enamel pin set and stuff like that. I think there's one with autograph poster that is sold out, but I think you can still get one with the poster. There's a lot of different options. If you're a fan of this movie and want to go extra mile, go to ScreamFactory.com and you can kind of check out the different iterations they have there. But if you just want the standard, this one did me really well. So highly recommend that for fans.
Nice. And I will link in the description where you can find maybe some of the other like extras and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So my next one, yeah, it's a completely different movie, so I don't know how to segue.
Okay.
But this is a release that I had been really excited about finally coming out on Blu-ray, and that is Our Dancing Daughters. And this is a almost 100-year-old movie. It's not, so some people say it's the first Joan Crawford movie, but it's actually not. It's among her first films, but I don't think technically very first film, but early films. So here's the back. Unfortunately, no features, which is kind of a bummer, but I'm just really happy to have this looking awesome. So as I said, this is not Joan Crawford's first film, but it really is the movie that kind of catapulted her into stardom. Like, this is the movie that kind of put her on Hollywood's radar. The movie itself is kind of a standard love triangle. If I'm being really honest, it's not really the plot that kind of entertains me. It's just the how much of a interesting vehicle this is for Joan Crawford. Like, this is so of its time. It's it kind of actually fits perfectly with my title that I'm going to talk about next. But it's this jazz era. Crawford plays like the ultimate jazz baby, and it's very scandalous for the time, actually. So this is pre-code, so this is 1928, I believe. Yeah, that's probably right. But yeah, so there's a lot of like, not nudity, of course, but there's definitely like some like negligees and a lot more skin than what you're kind of used to seeing. Again, very tame, but for the time that was like probably very shocking. Just the idea of having these like carefree teenagers and young people dancing to jazz music. It's so funny to think about now, but like that really was so salacious for the time. So yeah, that's kind of what makes this movie special. Like I said, the thrust of the plot is a little bit kind of like been there, done that, but yeah, it's great. There's some really cool numbers, and if you can see this, but that center picture there's like one of the big numbers with her with some balloons, which is kind of wild. But yeah, if you're a Joan Crawford stan, like we all are, definitely check this out. It looks great. I was really like the bench is so high for Warner Archive titles. And again, I want everyone to take into consideration that this is almost 100 years old, like literally. And I have to say, like, they put a lot of nice work into this. Like, there's not a lot of scratches. There's not a lot of, like, sometimes with older movies like this, if they're not restored correctly, you'll get what is like fluctuations and like the temperature of the film, meaning it'll be black and white, but you'll get like some flickering. There's no issues like that I found. It just looks really nice. I mean, it's not flawless, but man, it is near flawless, especially for how old it is. Like, I was thoroughly impressed. Like, I could tell that they really put a lot of hard work into this. So, I've never owned this on DVD, but I can't imagine that this is anywhere in the ballpark of the DVD version. So, yeah, if you're curious about upgrading from DVD to Blu-ray, absolutely. If you've never seen this before and you just like Joan Crawford and you just want to see more of her films, I think it's really worth picking up. Again, it's not top tier, but I think Crawford just really makes this a fun, interesting kind of time capsule of a movie.
Yeah, that one seems really interesting. I don't really think of Joan Crawford as necessarily a song and dance person. So
Yeah, well,
yeah.
I'm glad you said that, because also it's really interesting to see a playful, silly side of her in this. Like she never goes full like slapstick, but she definitely has some bits where I'm like, you don't really see that in like later Joan Crawford, where she can be a little silly, but still be like the romantic object or lead or whatever. So that was kind of cool. I did like seeing that she could be playful and um show a little bit of a softer side.
Yeah, that I'm really excited to check that one out. And I'm all for Warner Archive going more into their pre-code stuff. They have a rich vault to like exhume, but they I think is if you're even in the slightest bit interested in this title, I would say support it, because I think kind of voting with your dollars is how we need to like encourage the Warner Arc. I know they're doing like a big celebration this year of like 100 years of Warner Brothers, but just showing them that these like older films do have this support and people want to see them. I think that's very important. So if you're like on the fence, just support them. They're one of the best in the business, and we want them to keep churning these out for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And going to my next title, this is one I was very excited about, considering I did not know about its existence like a month ago. But that is from 88 Films. This is Magnificent Warriors. And I was primarily excited for one reason, and that is Michelle Yeoh, uh, recent Oscar nominee for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Michelle Yeoh kicking ass back in the 90s. And I had so much fun with this, but I'll show that off or show off the package first, and then I'll dig into it. So you have the slip cover, and as with typical 88 Films release, it's really nice packaging. You get a lot of like extra swag and stuff in here. Do have some double-sided artwork, so you have this here. So you have that, which is pretty cool. And you have a booklet, which I will show up here. They credit as Michelle Khan here instead of Michelle Yeoh, but that's interesting. So, and then there you can kind of see her look, like her live action look here in the back. And so got some artwork and essays and all that jazz in here. All that jazz. We'll see. We'll go back to that in a little bit. And so and then we got
Nice.
one that's similar to the outside artwork, and then we have this horizontal version here, which is pretty cool. So yeah, all of this is within their standard packaging, which I really appreciate the care that they put into this. But yeah, Magnificent Warriors, outside of me just saying like Michelle Yeoh, and that's all you need to know, which I think it is. But to expand a little bit, so this is set in the 1930-ish era, where it's set in China, and Japan has like kind of like invaded China, and there are like a group of like elite kind of like like assassins, couriers, what have you, spies, who are kind of trying to skillfully lead the resistance against the Japanese incursion. And Michelle Yeoh is one of like the top people within this. She starts off, it's almost kind of like a Spielberg-esque Indiana Jones opening, where you have Michelle Yeoh's character going into kind of like a hostile environment to try to broker a deal, and then it kind of all goes to hell, and it just like it turned into a big spectacle, and it's like a lot of fun. It's a really cool like sequence of her using, what I really like about this film is like they use pretty much all the tools in the arsenal. There's hand-to-hand combat, there's sword play, and there's also guns and explosions and everything. So you get like the full spectrum of action craziness, which is a lot of fun. And like I know people like who've seen like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon or Everything Everywhere, like she still got it, she's still great, but like seeing her like young and hungry and just like really just like kicking ass is just like so satisfying. I loved it so much. But just like outside of that, it goes into kind of more of a plot of just like these spies working with one another, and it has kind of a action and comedy, like comedic tone, until you get to more of like a straight out battle at the end that's more serious. But like I really like kind of the tonal balance throughout. There's some memorable characters. I don't know all the actors' names, so I can't really praise all of them individually. But there are a lot of really great, fun performances within this that expand beyond Michelle. And just like the action sequences are so well executed, this is probably one of my top 88 films releases that I've watched probably in the last year. I really, really enjoyed this one. So the transfer is really nice. It comes from a 2K restoration of the original camera negative. It does come with a audio commentary track and 2 archival interviews, one of which is Michelle Yeoh, so that's a treat. So audio commentary, interviews, great transfer, fun movie, Michelle Yeoh. I don't know what more I have to say to like convince you. It's a lot of fun. You got explosions, you got sword fighting, and you got hand-to-hand combat. So Magnificent Warriors, it's one of my favorite things I'm talking about this week. A lot of fun.
Nice. Well, I'm certainly sold. Like,
awesome.
You had me sold from jump. So
yes.
Yay. Speaking of all that jazz, and again, this kind of goes with my last title, which is the Steelbook 20th anniversary of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty cool. I like that. So
Razzle dazzle.
Yeah, so I really like before I mean, and I'm going to keep this pretty short because I feel like everyone's at least seen or heard of Chicago, but here is the inside package, which I think is really cool. So now there is a digital copy that's just not in there. And then that's the disc. So yeah, Chicago's great. I don't know how else to describe it. It's probably easily one of the best musicals, I think, like out there. I think so I'm not a big musical person, but I will say that like I found this really easy to warm up to, and I don't know if that's necessarily the case for everyone, but I would kind of wager that this is probably one of the more accessible kind of musicals if one were kind of trying to dip their toe into stuff like this. But yeah, it's great. The movie cost $45 million, which doesn't feel like a lot, but that was in 2002. And it ended up making like a ton more, but Yeah, I mean, I mentioned the budget just because every single cent is up there on the screen. The costumes, the production design, everything is just excessive, beautiful. The numbers are catchy. Before we started recording, I was saying I had some of the songs still stuck in my head from watching it a little bit earlier. So, yeah, it's great. I've seen this a few times before. So you might be like, it's a Blu-ray. Okay, cool. But where's the 4K? So we don't have a 4K of this yet. I'm really hoping, and again, this was something that we were talking a little bit before we started recording, which was and you were saying pretty aptly that just like Wayne's World got a steelbook Blu-ray, this might get a 4K later down the road, which I think is such a great astute observation, and I hope that's the case.
Yeah, like I was saying, so Wayne's World, I believe, I think the Blu-ray came out in like January or February last year, and then the 4K ended up coming out in November, and you're like, damn it! Like I could have just like gotten the, but so I'm not trying to I don't want to like make our contacts angry and dissuade people from getting this. If you're interested in Chicago, by all means, this looks like a beautiful steelbook. But I would not be surprised for this to get like a 4K, at least in the next year to 2 years. If you don't wait, looks like a fun release. But
Yeah.
Paramount seems to be having a pattern, so we'll see how it goes.
And honestly, I will say I think it's a smart move on Paramount's part because not a lot of people still have 4K, and that's cool. Like, it is smart to just do a single Blu-ray release, and then for the people that want a dual 4K and Blu-ray, you do save a little bit when you're not bundling a whole other disc. So it's a little bit more affordable if, y'all out there don't have 4K or not interested in 4K. That's perfectly fine. But yeah, so I mean, I do like the fact that like they don't kind of force you to pay a little bit more for the 4K and Blu-ray if you only have Blu-ray. So in a way, I think that's kind of smart. So real quick, this isn't a new transfer. The old transfer was perfectly fine though. Again, I think it was fine for the time. Now that we have like 4K TVs and like newer players, you can kind of see that it's maybe not as crisp and clean as it could be, but it still looks great. I mean, really no complaints. I just am very excited for like a new like 4K. But yeah, this is like very affordable if y'all have just a Blu-ray and you're not interested in upgrading anytime soon. So yeah, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, that's kind of a smart play on Paramount's part.
Yeah, and I know we have some steelbook collectors out there, and just I understand the addiction. Just you got to pull the trigger and have some fun. One thing I wanted to note: this is kind of on topic, but I was a theater kid, kind of. So I actually, when I was in high school, I had like a small bit in like a performance that we did. We performed Cell Block Tango, and I was one of the husbands that gets their comeuppance. So if I remember correctly, I think I'm the guy who ran into the knife 10 times. So I'm pretty sure that's who I was. But
I love it.
That's my contributions to Chicago, like
Yeah,
my theater days.
that's
So,
amazing.
yeah. Going on to my next title, I'm about to enter a string of Kino Classics runs. So first one is from 1933. This is a pre-code movie. We were talking about pre-code earlier. This is White Woman with Carol Lombard and Charles Laughton. You got with a title like White Woman, you gotta see where it goes.
I very nearly picked this, but I was just teetering on the edge, and I was like, no.
Yes, I get it, but this is a pretty solid movie. I enjoyed it. So Carol Lombard plays the titular white woman, who who she marries a like a the Charles Lawton character, who is he's pretty rich. He seems to be nice enough. He owns like this kind of like a plantation type. I can't remember what they manufacture, but it's in Malaysia. But so she gets married to him and then kind of realizes after the fact that, oh, he is horrible and is just like a really cruel, like kind of abusive person. And while she like moves to Malaysia on this plantation, she ends up falling for one of the workers there, and drama ensues. That's pretty much it. It's a really kind of like taut melodrama. It's a very breezy 68 minutes, so it does not overstay its welcome by any means. It just kind of it's just like some really great performers like getting themselves into like a very tense situation and like really acting the hell out of it. It's not like overly padded, which I appreciate. The performances are pretty dialed in well. It's not too surprising in any particular way, but overall, it's just like a pretty well acted melodrama from the pre-code days. There's a few things not that would like shock our modern sensibilities, but I could understand where it's kind of like pushing against like the edges of decency with the pre-code values. So it's not completely sanitized, which I appreciate. There's a lot of like kind of more like wicked melodramas from this time, which are very fascinating to watch, just because they like, ooh, that's more cutting than you remember from Hollywood's golden age. But this one's pretty solid. This comes from a new 2K master. It's from their deal with Universal. It looks really, really nice. There's still some like minor nicks and scratches here. There is a little bit of that like density fluctuation that you talked about earlier. There's like some small amount of flicker, but overall, it's a pretty stable transfer, and they've really done a nice job of like kind of tuning this up, making it look the best that it ever has. And you also get an audio commentary, unlike the one you were talking about. They do some audio commentaries from filmmaker Alan Arkush, who I believe was the director of Get Crazy, which I talked about probably about a year ago now on this series, and Daniel Kramer, the film historian. So they do a co-commentary track, and they have a selection of trailers. So Kino Classics, like, this is one that's probably never going to get like a deluxe release elsewhere, but they do they're one of the best in the business of just like getting these like unknown gems and rescuing them. It's not always like to the level of maybe something like Warner Archive, but for like the sheer volume that they rescue, like they put in some solid work. So I appreciate that. So
yeah,
White Woman, it's worth it if you like Carol Lombard or Charles Lawton. Otherwise, tepid recommendation, but it's fine.
I like, yeah, I am definitely very, I love both of those actors. Also, like, can you hold up the cover again?
Yes.
It looks like he's sniffing his head.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a weird placement. Like, he looks like he's angrily smelling his hair. I mean,
Yes.
listen, if that's your thing, like, go off. It's fine. But no, that does sound really interesting. It's probably one I'll probably wait and see if it's on sale, because I probably will pick that up. I do like, I'm sure you're the same way, where you have favorite actors that you have to kind of have everything, like same with the director. So I know you are the resident anime expert, okay? Like all things anime. Yes. So why I mention that, it's not an anime, but I feel like it's the closest thing to sort of like a live action anime, and that's Project Wolf Hunting.
Okay.
Let's see. So here now we do have some nice like, it's not loaded with features, but we do have a featurette and a behind the scenes and a trailer. So yeah, this was one I was like kind of not sure about, because it has such a bloated runtime. And I'm like, listen, if you're not like some Cecil B. DeMille epic, do you really need to have like such a robust runtime. But you know, I liked it. I really did. Like, so again, this is very much a live action R-rated, and I will say hard R-rated anime. This movie has probably the most blood, guts, and gore maybe ever that I've ever seen. Like, I was trying to think about like the only other movie that I kind of think maybe has more maybe blood would maybe be like Dead Alive. But even still, like the carnage is just like next level. So I'm going to keep this review pretty short because if y'all are interested, I can put a link to my full review that I did, but I'll just give you my kind of broad stroke thoughts. It's a fun enough movie. I think again, there's a ton of like blood, guts, gore. I mean, it's almost done in like such a not not realistic way, but like it's almost done in a lot of detail where it almost borderlines on like fetishizing it. So, that could be like a hell no, I don't want to watch it. But for some people, that could be like, yeah. But I will say, like, overall, it is a little bit too long. I do love how this is. It feels very much like a earnest 80s action film that has no winking to the camera. There's no like snarky quips to keep it like cool. It's just a very earnest kind of action movie. And it's not that we don't ever get those, but we don't really get a lot of those anymore. So if y'all like really good action movies or just cheesy bad action movies with a lot of gore and not a lot of plot, this is it. And I will say one last thing. There is such a genre shift like midway through that it's kind of amazing. Like it's kind of like just a beautiful thing. How there's like this really big important character that and all of this gets introduced maybe like at the halfway point, like maybe even well into the halfway point. It's not something you're really supposed to do, but the movie's so much like a cartoon that it's like you kind of don't care.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fun. It looks great. Well Go USA did a really nice job with this. Speaking of stuff I would love to see and done in 4K, please do a 4K release. Oh, a 4K steelbook
Ooh,
would be
yes.
really rad. But and I'm just happy to have this on physical media. It's a great release, and y'all should definitely check it out.
Yeah, Wellgo, they're very strategic about which 4Ks they choose. It's only like a handful each year, but like you
Yeah.
said, this sounds like one that would be worth revisiting. Because they recently came back to Train to Busan, which I did a few weeks ago. So
Yeah.
maybe one day. But I'm gonna have to add that to my weekend viewing because I have to see if there's really as much blood as you say there is.
Yeah.
I trust you, but I need to see it for these own eyes.
Yeah. It's a lot. It really is. And like, again, if that's like, it's like, as long as you're not squeamish and you don't mind the lack of a real plot, it's fine. It's a lot of fun, I think.
I'll report back.
Okay.
So heading to my next Kino Classics title, I have Marco Polo, and I'm not talking about the pool game. I am talking about the 13th century explorer. So no reversible art, just standard Kino Classics disc. The story stars Rory Calhoun. So this is the story of the explorer who he makes his way to China. This is really takes on the kind of a raucous kind of adventure, kind of like swashbuckling kind of tale. We reviewed something from Warner Archive last year, which kind of gave me the same tone of just like it was something with Errol Flynn, but I cannot think of it off the top of my head. But it's kind of
Oh,
like it's like Adventures of Don Juan, maybe was that it?
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind
Don
of the
Coyote.
tone. I think it was Don Juan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I felt as I began this, because like it's very light and fun, and there's like swashbuckling and there's kind of like romance and all that stuff, but then it kind of gets to kind of a more traditional place where it's like Don Juan kind of coming up, butting up against like this kind of cruel ruler in China and trying to kind of like help the people like of kind of like the community to basically get out from underneath the tyrannical rule of this person. So it's a very like big epic. There's romance. Trying to see the woman who stars alongside him. Yoko Tani. Oh yeah, okay. On the on the front, I thought this was the ruler. Yeah, Yoko Tani plays the love interest, and there's some really good set pieces in this. And something you said we're talking about in the last review, you were talking about the Cecil B. DeMille like epics and stuff, and like how you have to justify your runtime if you're going to be that long. This has that epic feel, but not the epic runtime. So I was appreciative of that. This runs are fairly lean for this genre, hour and 44 minutes. So that's it doesn't like draw things out too much, which I really appreciate. And I don't know, it's just a nice time shot in CinemaScope, so it's beautiful. This comes from a new 4K restoration, and like it really shows. This is a really nice transfer. I know sometimes like Kino, like it could be like, okay, this got a new transfer, but there's still like scratches or stuff. But this one, it's pretty much near flawless as far as I can tell. So I was really, really appreciative of this transfer. It has an audio commentary from film historian Tim Lucas, and some trailers. So if you're in the mood for more of like a historical epic and not just like going back to your like stalwart Cecil B. DeMille stuff, this one is worth checking out. It's pretty fun. So like not the best in the genre, but perfectly good. So very happy with this release, and I think anyone who's a fan of the genre will be too. So Marco Polo, come find it. Just
Marco
reach out and find it. Yes.
Yeah, no, that does sound pretty interesting. Again, I'm sort of fascinated by like these old Hollywood epics and like how they're kind of sort of coming back into vogue. But my next one has a really disturbing element in it. Something, yeah, this is a little teaser, okay? It's something that I thought I never wanted to see, and unfortunately I had to see it. Jason Statham with hair.
Oh no.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it kind of broke my brain. So no, this is London.
I see
so
London. I see France.
Yeah, and you see that cast like that's intriguing, right?
Yeah.
So here's the back. There's really nothing on it. So also this has one of the most hilarious like back cover lines, like the plot synopsis. I'm gonna read you a little bit of it because it's so ridiculous. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
London, not the city, the woman, a very hot woman. And I did not make that up. That is like what is written there.
Nice.
And I kind of did a double take on that, but yeah. So if that's any indication of how this movie is, yeah. So again, I was really curious about this movie because it seemed really interesting. It has a ton of like actors that have gone on to do huge things. I mean, Chris Evans is probably one of the most bankable actors right now. Jason Statham, also a heavy hitter. I mean, I guess Jessica Alba still does stuff.
Yeah, she transitioned to the like cosmetic fashion world. So
which,
like,
yeah, I mean, probably doing way more than I ever will in 3 lifetimes. But anyways, and here's the thing: the actors are doing their best. Like they're not bad, really. It's just very pretentious. It is one of the most pretentious movies. Like here, so I specifically wrote down an example. So Chris Evans, Jason Statham, a couple other characters are all doing cocaine off a framed picture or a painting of one of Van Gogh's last paintings.
Mhm.
So they're like cutting up these lines, doing it off this like painting. I mean, it's in like a glass frame, but they're like doing it, and like they're waxing philosophically while they're doing coke off a Van Gogh painting in this
As you
opulent
do,
bathroom,
as you
as
do.
one does, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, but it's 93 minutes of shitty people just being shitty to one another.
Uh,
And I will say, fun fact, this is one of Chris Evans' lowest rated Rotten Tomato score movies. There's maybe like two other ones that are maybe rated this low in his filmography. This only made $20,000 at the box office.
okay.
But it is very weird. Like you have Jason Statham does this weird monologue about a brothel and like all these like things you can get at this brothel.
Hmm.
And it's like, again, he's waxing philosophically about all these like kinks and fetishes. And like, it's so weird. I mean, it's like him and Chris Evans, and it's just like, it felt very much like a fever dream. But I don't want to like, and I don't want to make it sound like it's like a so bad it's good, because it's kind of just bad. But there are moments that are like really almost so absurd, it's kind of genius.
Hmm.
That's not a recommendation, though. It's not. It's really not a good movie, but
Okay. So I
it's
shouldn't watch it.
shouldn't watch it. I mean, if you
Okay.
do, don't blame it on me. Again, it's not like I'm commenting on people's appearances, but it's just like there's an uncanny valleyness to seeing Jason Statham with hair.
Because
Like
you have a vision of Jason Statham, and that's not it.
it is, yeah. And I mean, even listen, again, even with hair, he's like way more handsome than I will ever be. But it's just weird to see. It's not like I'm saying he's weird looking in it, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot. But yeah, the movie's just not good. Again, if you are curious, the transfer's decent. The way it's filmed is like that kind of like I'm trying to think how to describe it. It's like that yellowy, like Euro-y kind of early 2000s sort of lighting.
Yeah.
The restorations are not awful looking. There's times when things look very soft and kind of blurry. Um, I don't know if that's also maybe like just some of the not great camera work, but yeah. If you're very morbidly curious, I would say maybe rent it if you can, but yeah, it's not good.
Wow. Glowing recommendation from mine. All right. Guess I'll take that off my wish list. Damn. Okay. Uh, Moving on to my next title. It's my last historical epic of the week, also from Kino Classics, and that is "If I Were King" with Ronald Coleman and Basil Rathbone, Francis D. Ellen Drew, screenplay by Preston Sturges, and directed by Frank Lloyd. So you have this here, standard Kino interior, as I've been showing off. So yeah, this one, it's pretty solid. It's just like I said, I've been on a historical epic run these past few titles, but this one, this is set in the 15th century, and let me see which king it is. It's King Louis the 11th. So Basil Rathbone plays him, and it's basically about Ronald Coleman. He plays a he's like a poet who gets the opportunity to save the kind of village, like a week to act as king to this village in order to keep it from like being like overtaken or whatever. Like it's basically like giving the village one last chance. Like it's almost like the king is like, you think you can do better? Here, like you try to be king, and it's a really kind of silly premise, but it's interesting. And there's like drama, there's romance, like it's another swashbuckler. And Ron Coleman, he is like fairly charming. This does end up in like more of like a battle heavy place near the end, where it's just like kind of villagers rising up to kind of like protect their own like self-interest and everything against the tyrants. It's kind of familiar, but if you find comfort in that kind of historical familiarity, you'll probably enjoy this. If historical epics typically bore you, I don't think this is going to shake off the cobwebs necessarily. It's kind of what you kind of expect from that genre, or maybe if you're not very familiar, it gives you pretty much what you imagine from that genre. But it is pretty decent. It's an hour and 41 minutes. It's a little, you can feel the length a little bit at points. It's not as streamlined as some of the other ones, but overall, it keeps a decent pace. Acting is good. It's just the story. It's not revolutionary. It's kind of silly, but it's fine. It's out of the last three, out of White Woman, Marco Polo, and If I Were King, I would probably put this last, but it's still a decent time. This comes from a new 2K master, similar to White Woman. It looks pretty good, pretty solid, cleaned up a lot. Still some minor nicks and scratches, a little bit of like contrast fluctuation, but overall, you can tell it's been cleaned up quite a bit, so that's good. It sounds pretty solid. There are some kind of like more piercing high notes in like some of the score elements, but that's not like a consistent thing. Just some of the instruments get a little shrill, but overall good. This comes with a audio commentary track from Julie Kurgo, film historian, and a bunch of trailers. So it's pretty much the same setup as the last two, just audio commentary, trailers, and solid transfer. So if you like historical epics, this is another one. If I Were King, not the best of the ones I've talked about, but certainly watchable. But once again, you could probably wait for a sale for this one, but still worth checking out.
Yeah, no, I too have a Kino title. This is actually this week my only Kino title, weirdly. And that is Raw Wind and Eden. And here's the back. So we do have a commentary from David Delval. He's a friend of the channel, been a good friend of mine for a while, and his commentary with Daniel Kramer. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But yeah, so longtime viewers and new time viewers, we know we kind of sometimes we swap like racy covers or titles. So this is kind of my, I guess, meager entry. That's a little spicy. We got going on there. I mean, for the time, this was like the 50s. Like her showing leg was probably very controversial. But so this is an interesting take on a shipwrecked romance. This is kind of a steamy film that sort of sets itself up to be a fairly by the numbers love triangle. Yet, I think as the plot unfolds, there's actually some pretty interesting things kind of bubbling underneath the surface. For instance, there's a very engaging mystery about the mysterious man that lives on this island, and kind of like what his backstory is. Here's my problem. Once that is revealed, there's no hook left to the movie. It's kind of, that was the driving force that kept me engaged. So once that was revealed, it was a little humdrum, I'm afraid. I will say I won't spoil the ending. I'll just say that I liked it. It was, the movie kind of lumbers a little bit, and then like it just starts kicking ass at the last couple minutes of the movie. But it's really interesting. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It never outstays its welcome. It's only 93 minutes long. You know, it's enjoyable, but it's really nothing new. This does look really nice, though. This comes from a brand new 2K And this is a very visually stunning movie. They shoot in some really nice locales. They take advantage of just the natural beauty of like where I'm not sure where they filmed, but it looks nice wherever it is. And yeah, like that really pops. Like just like the visuals look really nice in this 2K transfer. So yeah, it looks really nice, sounds really nice. The commentary track is a lot of fun. I know I've talked a lot about David's commentaries before, but he always brings something special to the table because he like knew a lot of these people. So all of his stuff is mostly from like firsthand accounts of like knowing these people personally, which I think is really fascinating. So he always offers something really fresh and interesting. So I think his commentary tracks are always worth checking out. And that's not to undercut David Kramer, who is also really good on this, and the two really like gel really well together. So it's an all right movie. The commentary's a lot of fun. It did kind of help me appreciate the movie a little bit more on a second reviewing. Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, I really like Esther Williams, so I was interested in checking that one out.
Yeah,
So
she's
I'll have
good.
to check it out. Yeah. Um, Heading into my lone documentary of the week, I was excited to talk about this one because I actually watched this one at Sundance last year, and it's finally out, and I'm glad that it is. This is from Greenwich Entertainment and Kino Lorber, and that is Calendar Girls.
Mm.
And yes, this is a DVD. It is not my favorite, but it's how we get it. So this one, this is just a really nice and intriguing documentary. It's totally my speed. I'll admit that. It might not be for everyone, but I loved it. It's about a group of women in Florida who they're over 60 and they are a local dance troupe. And they kind of like get together and like um, kind of like learn different uh kind of choreography and like learn like to different songs and just come together, and they take it very seriously because they view it as like, yes, they are having fun and they are learning different, they're like being able to hang out with their friends and like do just like move around and have fun and like prove like they still got it, but they also do go perform for people and around the community, like at hospitals or different like events like that. They get hired to come perform or they go perform for like charity, and they take it seriously. There's like no room for slacking on this group, and so like you have the women who you can tell they do just want to like, oh, I just want to have fun and do this, and then you have the people who are like leading it or taking seriously, like, no, like basically like, you got to get your ass in line if you're going to be on this team. Like, yes, we're going to have fun, but like this is serious. Like, if you want people to take us seriously and not view us as a joke, you need to take yourself seriously and this whole thing seriously, because it's not like, oh, dancing grandmas, that's hilarious. Like, no, it's like they are a dance team. They just happen to be over 60, and they do like some really like great work. They're not doing like crazy hip hop dancing or anything, but they're doing some really like fun, like interesting like choreography and everything else. And it's just like they can get it. And I really appreciate that. And but then also what I really like about this is you get to learn about several of the individuals on a more personal level, and there's a lot of that really those personal moments that I really responded to, and it really kind of breaks your heart, like because like there's you see kind of that old, like especially since these women are over 60, some of them they're like they're married, and some of their like some of the dynamics are kind of steeped in that more traditional family values and like gender roles. So you have like a husband, like in one particular scenario, who like basically wants to forbid his wife from like going to perform for the dance troupe because he wants to like go out of town and like go to their like lake house where he does nothing except just like sit on the couch and like watch the TV in a different home. And she's like, she's afraid to like leave the house because she doesn't have permission to like leave. And it's just kind of like that infuriating but fascinating like her, like seeing her trying to build up that courage to like, maybe she doesn't have to listen to her husband. Maybe she can like kind of like get that confidence within herself to be like, no, I'm going to do this because this is important to me. That's just one example of just like one of the like the fascinating insights into these ladies that I don't know. It's just it clicks with me. I love this so much. It's remained one of my favorite documentaries from last year, and I'm glad that it is finally being released on physical media. I do wish this had been on Blu-ray. I would have loved that, but overall, it looks solid for DVD. It's a brand new movie, so there's not really much archival footage or anything. Anything that has been shot is usually pretty much within the last decade. So it's like HD cameras. It's a little soft in some spots, but that's just DVD for you, what it is. The sound comes through clearly enough. And there's no special features, it's just trailers, but just if you don't want to buy the DVD, find it like rent it on digital, find it like see if it's on like Canopy or something. Like find somehow to watch it because I highly recommend watching it. But if you don't do DVD, I understand. But like it's a good enough movie to like seek out because I just really really like this one.
Yeah, I will see. I know like Kino who distributes Greenwich has their own VOD platform where you can rent stuff pretty easily and inexpensively. So if y'all are interested in seeing that, I definitely am. I probably will end up getting the DVD if I don't just rent it. But you know, even if you rent it from them, you're still supporting them, which is awesome. And they're definitely a label that I think is worth supporting. So I will link that in the description of where you can both buy it, or if you just want to rent it off them. So my next one is another Warner Archive title. And that is Wife versus Secretary. Now, this is one that I had seen actually before. So here's the back. Now, this does have a short film and a trailer. It is Crime Doesn't Pay short, and the public pays. So it's these cute little like feet like short films. I kind of wish they would have also included like a cute cartoon or something, which they sometimes do with these releases. But yeah, so I like I love this cast. Like this
Yes.
is fantastic. Clark Gable, Jean Harlow, Myrna Loy. He isn't featured very prominently, but Jimmy Stewart is in that as well.
Oh, nice.
Like just itty bitty right there. But all right, so this is a movie where okay, I love Ernst Lubitsch. Like I think he kind of makes some of the most witty, interesting, sophisticated, takes on relationships. Maybe specifically more like like middle to upper class people, but um this one, this is a movie that kind of feels like it wants to be a Ernst Lubitsch screwball comedy, but it just doesn't have that kind of polish or witticisms to kind of like really make it very effective. That being said, it's a fun movie. I think the premise is just maybe a little bit too simple. It's very much like what you think it is. Myrna Loy plays this really amazing wife to Clark Gable. Gable has a very attractive secretary in Jean Harlow. It's all very innocent, but Myrna Loy is people put in her head constantly that like, oh, he has a attractive secretary. I mean, to be fair, it's Jean Harlow, right?
Yeah.
So but yeah, I mean ultimately this plot is basically where it goes. What's missing is like kind of fun, fantastic set pieces or memorable scenes to really make this stick out. Because honestly, this is like the second time I've seen it, but I fail to like remember kind of a handful of just scenes. I mean, it's memorable for Myrna Loy, Jean Harlow, Clark Gable, but And like I said, Jimmy Stewart is in it for maybe like 5 minutes, but yeah, it's kind of forgettable. I mean, it's charming, it's enjoyable, it's not very long, it's only 87 minutes. I didn't like have a bad time watching it. It's very breezy. It's just a little bit too simple for me, I guess. It just doesn't have that sort of like witticisms like when you get something like Dinner at Eight, which also has Harlow in it, which is a vastly superior movie. But there's only one Ernst Lubitsch. But this kind of why I'm referencing him so much is this really feels like they're trying to emulate that kind of
Yeah.
thing, but it just does not work. Like I said before, Warner Archive always does a really nice job with restorations. Again, this looks really crisp and clean. I always am a little bit like extra when I scrutinize Warner Archive titles, just because like I said, the benchmark is like so high. But yeah, it looks great. There's no debris or artifacts. Like the contrast between the black and white is really nicely done.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like overblown as far as like being too bright or too dark. Everything comes out really crisp and clear. Sounds really nice. It's just like an all right movie.
Yeah. I I almost said this earlier, I swear. Whenever you were talking about, or right after I started talking about White Woman, you were like, "Oh, Carol Lombard, like there's like she's someone I have to get like all of her releases just because I love her so much." I always like instinctively I was like, "Ooh, like me and Myrna Loy." I forgot you were like that you were talking about this. So whenever she came up, I was like, "Oh, my girl!" Like she's one of like my all-time Hollywood crushes. I love her so much. The Thin
Nice.
Man series means so much to me. So just like I know you just said the movie's kind of like forgettable, but like I love her so much that I still cannot wait to watch this. I just love her. So
Yeah, it's a good watch. I don't want to say like it's a like I definitely did not have a bad time watching it. And like it's almost bittersweet because like Jean Harlow, gosh, she died very young. She was only in her 20s. She only made like a handful of films. So seeing something with her in it is always a treat. But yeah, the movie definitely is made by the acting. So
well, I'm still looking forward to it. So, but I'll keep my expectations in check. Just because it has Myrna Loy in it, I'll still keep it in check. My final title. Okay, I just have to say, last week I was a little bit out of season, but with when I talked about Black Christmas. Yes, we are past Christmas, but it's more acceptable for horror, I think. Like it's kind of like evergreen. This one, I got to admit, I am pretty out of season for this, like for what it is. This is Sappy Holiday, uh,
wow.
which okay, here's what happened. So this is coming out in February, so it's not my fault. I was drawn to this one because I like kind of like cheesy like kind of Hallmark style Christmas movies, but I did have there I did have hope for this one because this is like through an imprint of Film Rise, like and NBD Entertainment. So I was like, oh, I like Film Rise, and they're kind of like seemed like to be like a more upper echelon. Like, oh, maybe this will be like a surprisingly good Christmas movie, like that I can kind of throw into the rotation next year or whatever. It's not really good. uh, it's basically like I like kind of like the 50 Hallmark / Lifetime movies that I watched in November and December. It's basically just that level, but maybe like it's like middle to lesser level of those because there are some of those that I like truly do enjoy for what they are, and I think they're really well done. Usually it's like people that I like in particular that are in there that kind of elevate the material. This, I don't know either of these people or even the people that are not featured on this, so I didn't have like that clear connection with them. And because of that, it hits all the tropes. It is basically a Hallmark movie. It's about a this young woman who she is like a aspiring chef. She has been working really hard. Her doofus boyfriend, not this dude, spoiler alert, like he's kind of like a very like subtly controlling. He's the type of, he wants her to take time off to go meet his parents. He is also planning on, she thinks he's planning on proposing, and he takes the liberty of requesting time off for her, like to her boss. He's like, I talked to your boss and I got you your time off. And she's like, excuse me, I'm up for a promotion right now and I'm not sure if I have time to be taking off. He's like, it's fine, I cleared it with them. And you just kind of get that, ooh, no, thank you. But he has to go up ahead of her because he has like to meet with some like donors for his mom's foundation. But plot, 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 plot. What it is she goes up like the next day. There's like winter weather. She runs off the road, gets rescued by this hunky white dude. She has to stay at the house because his family's house, because the roads are impassable, and her soon to be fiance wouldn't like drive a few hours to come pick her up because he was busy, whatever. But so of course she starts to fall in love with this dude's family and blah 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 blah. So it's typical Christmas plot realized. The acting, like, she's pretty good. He's your typical boring bland white guy. The rest of the cast is just typical stock character, Lifetime characters. The production value is very glossy and like it's a Lifetime movie without being on Lifetime. It's just what it is. It's not very good. It's like it gives you some cheesiness that's a little bit fun, but like watching it in February is kind of depressing because like we're behind Christmas. So maybe this would work better when I'm more in that Christmas mindset. But I'm just like, this isn't even like, it's like I'm behind, like I'm past Christmas for now. But I had to review it, so I had to watch it now. But it's not great. Like when you can just watch something like this for free come November, December on Lifetime or Hallmark, there's not really worth picking this up. But like, kudos for them for thinking this was worth a Blu-ray release. I appreciate that, but I didn't really like it. There's like a trailer on here and a photo gallery, so yeah. It is.
It is a movie, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I haven't seen it, so I don't have any really any thoughts on it. I will say I am fascinated by the idea of somebody like a horror director doing like a Hallmarky kind of Christmas horror movie, like,
Yeah.
but use those kind of tropes. Because I always think it's really interesting when they at least try to deconstruct the genre a little bit. Like I'm blanking on the R-rated Hallmarky Christmas movie that I reviewed.
Christmas with the Campbells.
Yes, which wasn't good, but it was entertaining and enjoyable because it was sort of an interesting sort of deconstruction, which sounds very pretentious. But anyways, so my last title, I wanted to kind of end this with a bang and something that I really liked. So we got Legion of Superheroes, and I kind of want to just really show off just how gorgeous this packaging is.
Yeah.
And here's the back. We do have some really nice features. I mean, Warner Brothers always does really nice work when it comes to their DC animated stuff. So here's the inside. Here's the discs. So again, it's a dual release if you don't have 4K. Yeah, so I have been a really big fan of like these animated DC films. So I will say that if you are kind of new to like the DCAU, this is a really nice one to kind of get into because kind of like with all their animated films, you can kind of go into it with like little to no knowledge. And like they'll still kind of fill you in on things you need to know, but it what's nice is it doesn't really it doesn't hold your hand, but it also kind of like gives you a clear like picture of who everybody is, their motivations. Like it's interesting because this is talking about like the different brainiacs, and like again, you don't need, I mean, you'll get more out of it if you know like the lore and everything, but you know, if you don't, it kind of fills you in, which is nice. And like this isn't my favorite like the DC animated stuff, but it is really good. It's a nice story. I think there's some really nice misdirections. There's a pretty great twist, which admittedly you kind of see coming, but I still enjoyed it. I mean, I'm not going to spoil it, but there is a really nice message about family and misplaced hubris, like sins of the father. And so and again, I like how the messages are there, but they don't feel like preachy, or they don't feel like I don't know, like an after school special. Because there is a lot of great set pieces. The animation is fantastic. Something I was not expecting, but there is some Cronenberg style body horror, which I was like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, was not prepared and expecting that, but was pleasantly surprised. So that's awesome. Yeah, this looks stunning in 4K. Like the animation is already really crisp and clean and on point, and like the colors really pop. And again, you know, you do that in a 4K and it looks great. So yeah, I really like this release. Again, we have some nice featurettes. So this I forgot to mention this, but this does have a digital code. It wasn't in there when I showed it off, but if you order it, that will be there. Yeah, and it's a good time. Again, not my favorite, but very stylish. I loved, you know, I mean, one of the other things I didn't mention was like the voice acting is always great. Like I'm trying to think, it's like Wes Gleason, I think, is the voice director on a lot of these, does a fantastic job. Like it kind of blows my mind that like none of these people record together,
Yeah.
but yet it all feels like they do, because it's so nicely like just everybody's on the same page. It all sounds so natural and cohesive. So yeah, loved it. Definitely worth picking up. And yeah, I just kind of wanted to end on a really good high note, because some of these were a little bit hit or miss, but
Thank goodness, because I certainly didn't.
and honestly, like even if like the products or like the movies not great, I mean a lot of the releases are pretty stellar. So you know, stuff that doesn't necessarily connect with you and I might connect with somebody else. So you know, it's just like our opinion.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I think will do it for this episode. But as always, please consider giving this video a like, comment. Where we sometimes we do giveaways where you can be entered to comment. We're not doing it this week, but we still appreciate when you do that. It definitely helps these videos out a lot. But also, more importantly, please subscribe to the channel, because we do this weekly. Plus, we have a lot of other great content coming out like daily, so you don't want to miss that. And as always, thanks for hanging out with us.